The following is a text exchange which occurred between brothers on Friday, April 9th, 2021. It began with a photograph which I sent to my brother Brat. 10:46 a.m. This is the cabin from which the famous studies on the Neotoma Woodrat were conducted.
I think you're just making all of that up.
Generally, that would be an accurate assessment of most of what I say. In this case, it's absolutely true. You can be assured of that because I wouldn't have used the word predation if I hadn't seen it on a sign. Oh wait, I didn't use the word predation. I actually typed that to Shannon. Sadly, due to increased predation, climate change, and disease, the Neotoma Valley is no longer home of the Neotoma Woodrat.
Now your lies are compounding, as lies do. Are you in Pennsylvania?
Nope.
I think there is a Neotoma Valley in Pennsylvania.
Well, sir, there is a Neotoma Valley here in Ohio from which Dr. Edward S., I can't remember the last part, conducted a host of scientific experiments spanning decades and documented them for the Columbus Dispatch.
I see. Fair enough.
According to the sign, it's one of the most studied valleys in the state of Ohio. And you think it's in Pennsylvania.
More than the Ohio River Valley? The Miami Valley?
One of. I've noted an interesting phenomenon in which most of the leaves are actually on the ground. I wonder the cause.
Rats. They have returned.
Peut-être.
I'm walking around the hospital parking lot. I just had to help an old guy push his car over a curb because he decided to try to drive his car across the curb, through the grass, and onto the street because he didn't want to wait for the light to change.
Why did the guy not want to wait for the light? Isn't he old?
I suppose maybe because he was old? He didn't want to waste a second of his life? I don't know. I asked him what happened, and he told me that he forgot he wasn't in his truck. So this appears to be a general habit.
Straight from the heartland. This is Things I Text My Brother. Hey folks, and welcome back to another episode of Things I Text My Brother, a series of conversations which have taken place between the brothers Drouillard on subjects spanning the neighborhood and the globe, which will hopefully leave you smarter, kinder, and better looking. Today we're going to jump off from that dramatic reading that you just heard and discuss the topics therein. Maybe we'll talk about old guys driving over hospital parking lot curbs. Maybe we'll talk about wood rats. Maybe we won't. We haven't plotted that exact course because we want you to go on that journey with us. That's how it works on Things I Text My Brother. I'm Jeff. This is Brad. Let's talk about our texts. But Brother Brad, today we're actually going to start things off with a new segment that we encourage our listeners to take part in. We know we're going to make mistakes because, Brad, are we the experts on these subjects?
I think probably yes.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But even experts are going to make mistakes from time to time. And even experts might be able to learn even more. So, we're going to start a segment which we are entitling Ablutions and Edification. Ablutions being sort of a cleansing. Am I correct in that?
That is correct.
Yeah, you're a genius with words. So ablutions and edification, the edification, of course, being, learning something more. So we're going to cleanse ourselves from our sins, our shame, and what we've gotten wrong in the past. And then we will have the edification when somebody tells us more on a subject, when we learn something in addition to, and it doesn't have to be related to a mistake we made. It can just be something more that we learn. So today we commence with our ablutions and edification. For my personal part, I would like to admit that in episode 2, wherein we were talking about many things related to musicals, I said that I once attended a Woodmore High School edition of The Sound of Music while wearing a mullet perm in the 3rd grade. As it turns out, I was in the 4th grade. So, that is the one thing I have to admit. But am I mistaken, Brad, or did our father not also make a mistake in that very same episode?
Yep, we have an ablution for our father as well. Father Art had stated that Mama G, Glenda's favorite musical was Oklahoma. In fact, her favorite musical is Meet Me in St. Louis. So, Father, you have been cleansed.
So that completes our ablutions, our cleansing and our shaming. But we did have an opportunity to learn more as you came across something that actually goes very well with the nudges of our first episode. What was that?
So this sitcom hero from the late 90s, early 2000s in Singapore, was enlisted to encourage people to get vaccinated by singing a very catchy tune called Steady Poom Pee Pee. You should look it up if you haven't heard it yet. It's absolutely fantastic.
Steady Poom Pee Pee?
Steady Poom Pee Pee. That's
Can you use that in a sentence?
I can't. Because I don't know what it means. But steady poom pee pee. Steady P-O-M-P-I-P-I. And you will be doing yourselves a favor if you listen to this song, because you won't listen to it once. You won't listen to it twice. You will listen to it 7 times at least.
And by listening to it 7 times, this goes with our first episode because it was, like a public health nudge of some sort?
It's a public health nudge using humor and familiarity to encourage people to get vaccinated.
Well, I feel like we've been properly shamed. I feel like we've had a perfect opportunity to learn even more. So now why don't we start talking about today's topic, which all began with a hike that I took in a place called Clear Creek Metro Park, about 45 minutes from the enchanted land of Columbus, Ohio. And while walking through the park about 900 feet from a parking lot, I walked up upon a cabin that I took a photograph of myself on using the iPhone timer, one of the tools that I find best simulates what it would be like if I had friends going places who could take photographs of me. But in this case, I set the timer. I took a photograph of myself on the porch of a cabin, which was once owned by a man named Edward S. Thomas. And I learned the great story of the Neotoma Woodrat and Edward Thomas's studies in that area. And in fact, just as a plug for our Instagram feed that we have to go along with the site, if you go over to this episode's entry on our Instagram page, you will definitely find that photograph of me sitting on Dr. Thomas's porch. But this all begins our discussion on the Neotoma Woodrat, or any subject even tangentially related to that. Brother Brad, where are we going to start on this one?
Well, first I have to say that there is no Neotoma Valley in Pennsylvania, so I was wrong. So I'm doing my ablutions.
You're beginning the shaming early. The ablutions have begun.
That's right. I took my shaming early this week. I'm sure there'll be more, but I'll take one right away. So actually, I wanted to research Dr. Thomas. I wanted to see a little more about him. So researching Dr. Thomas took me to the Ohio State University, where he attended.
Ooh, another fine place, yes.
Was a senior in the year 1912-1913 school year. So I found that they have all of their yearbooks online from that time period. And it's called the Makio or Makio, M-A-K-I-O. I don't know how it's pronounced.
It's Nokia. Was the name. It was a cell phone in the early 2000s. Nokia.
Right, like Honda and Hyundai are the same car company. I gotcha. I'm with you. No, but so I did find his entry in the yearbook, and the quote he chose to use, and I think it's clearly connected to the Neotoma Woodrat, is "Bring forth the royal jester." So there you go.
It seems very fitting.
He was also the editor of the Sundial, which was a magazine apparently there, and he has a nature preserve named after him at Sharon Woods Metro Park. So that's what I learned about Dr. Thomas.
Is this the same Dr. Thomas who back in high school as a 17-year-old played all the sports, including handball and croquet?
I believe it may be, but I could be wrong about that. He did.
Is this the same Edward Thomas who took photographs and played the violin?
I don't know the answer to that, but I know he had a camera. Because I did read that someplace.
He did have a camera. Is this the same Edward Thomas who graduated from Columbus East High School before proceeding to Ohio State just a few years before another person named Chick Harley graduated from East High School in Columbus and proceeded to the Ohio State University?
It may be, and related to Chick Harley. In the same yearbook, I did read the section on Ohio State football. And it was the last year before they joined the Big Nine. They made the move from Western to the Big Nine. And all the players had to read a textbook written by their football coach. That was what they thought was most important to share about that season.
Very nice. Yeah, I thought that was really cool. Chick Harley, who grew up just like a couple blocks from the house that I actually lived in, he was a freshman at Ohio State during the year that Dr. Thomas was finishing his law degree at Ohio State. So 1916 was their 1 year crossover.
All lawyers study rats. Is that what we should take from this?
We should. And along that theme, we now begin the quiz, which you are unaware of. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're scoring at home, get ready. These will be the subjects that will come up in ablutions in our next episode. I am now going to quiz my brother Brad on, I guess, we'll call this the thology quiz, wherein I introduce a thology or analogy, and you tell me what it's the study of. Are you getting ready to Google? All right, here we go. First, ornithology.
Ornithology is the study of birds.
Boom. Entomology.
Entomology is the study of insects.
Boom. Herpetology.
Herpetology is the study of plants.
Is it? Or is it more like... I didn't actually write the answers down. I think it's... I'm just forgetting the word. Like lizards and things. Snakes, lizards.
Reptiles and amphibians.
There you go.
Yeah.
Next one. Botany.
Study of plants.
There you go. This one is kind of more of an abstract answer, but all these, by the way, are things that Dr. Thomas was delving into quite a bit. Ecology.
Ecology is the study of ecosystems.
Yeah. Geology.
Study of rocks, land masses, the earth.
The last one, not nology at all, but conservation.
Conservation is the study of conservation, where you
go.
Where you conserve. How do you conserve an ecosystem? So did you know that Dr. Thomas also invented a word?
What?
So you know how bees are in, apiaries and birds are in aviaries and all that stuff?
Yeah.
He invented a word because he wanted to study caterpillars. So he invented a word called the crawlery.
The crawlery. I was reading about how excited he was with his crawlery. I'm like, this guy is a nerd.
And I love it.
He's a nerd who wrote for the Columbus Dispatch, a weekly Nature article for 59 years, over 3,000 articles.
The most insane part about that is that it got enough readers that they kept doing it for 59 years. Can you imagine people sitting and reading that on a regular basis in a paper now? It wouldn't happen.
I mean, maybe we would, because we're the ones sitting here doing a podcast on a woodrat from one of the obscure valleys in Ohio.
I'm going to take us into another long-term study about botany, since we just learned that's the study of plants, not herpetology, which I mistakenly said was the study of plants.
Yeah.
So there was a study started in 1879 by W.J. Beale at Michigan State University. He wanted to see how long seeds could last buried underground and not growing.
4 days.
No.
4 years.
So he buried 20 bottles with 1,050 total seeds, so 20 bottles with 21 species in it each. And for every 5 years until 1920, he had this secret location. He would go and dig these up, and then he'd plant them and see if they would grow. So that's been going on, and they moved it to every 10 years, and now it's every 20 years. Only 1 to 3 professors know where it's buried. They have a handwritten map that they pass down from professor to professor, and they keep doing this. And there are still some of those seeds, even now. The last time they did it was in 2020. There are still seeds that grow into plants from those seeds buried in bottles all those years ago.
Is the secrecy necessary?
It is, because they don't want it to be messed with or contaminated.
Because a lot of people want to ruin this experiment.
Apparently it is the thing. But they have to keep redrawing the map because all the landmarks keep changing.
Where are they burying this stuff?
On the Michigan State campus. But if I knew where, I'd be one of the professors. I'd be sworn to secrecy.
Brother Brad, I actually want to take us in a totally different direction. We talked about all these different branches of science that Dr. Thomas was interested in. And basically, he's tied into that park that I mentioned, the Clear Creek Park, because back before it was a metro park, he actually acquired a large plot of land. I heard as much as 80 acres. Some sources seem to say a little bit less. But he acquired this land and actually turned this cabin into this super center for research, which scientists of all different backgrounds would come and they'd stay with him and they would research things. That's how today I found myself reading a scientific journal called the Neotoma Ecological Bioclimatic Laboratory. I don't know what any of it means. I didn't process anything of what's in it, but that's the type of stuff that he was generating in addition to his 3,000 articles for the Columbus Dispatch. But it was actually one of his friends who suggested the name for the specific valley in which his cabin was located. And he suggested it based on the name of a rat. You might be thinking of a traditional rat. It's very important to know that the rat that Dr. Thomas named his little valley after is not the rat that you and I know, which the rat that you and I know belongs to the genus of Rattus norvegicus, aka a Norwegian Rat, yeah. And those come over with their little beady eyes and hairless tails, and they're an invasive species. They're problematic. Whereas the rat that we're talking about is this beautiful, furry little guy. He's so happy and nice. He doesn't cause all the problems. And he's so much better looking than the Norwegian rat because our rat does have hair on his tail. Most typically referred to as the Allegheny woodrat with the genus Neotoma Magister. That was the species that one of his friends said, hey, this little guy lives in the rocks and crevices around here. You should name your little valley after a rat. So this beautiful Neotoma Valley is named after this rat. And so I start looking up all the great things about this rat. And what I'm starting to notice is that I am not interested in rats at all. So it's an interesting realization for a person who's doing a podcast on that very rat to say, boy, I really don't care about this rat. I looked at him. You can find him online. He's pretty. He's gray. He looks kind of like squirrel length and doesn't seem to cause many problems. And by the way, he's now gone from Dr. Thomas's Valley in this park. He's only in one little corner of Ohio, down by the Ohio River, which doesn't include this park anymore. But as I looked at some of the things about the rat, the one thing that really did catch my interest is that wood rats, also known as trade rats, also known as pack rats. And I've never in my life thought about what the term pack rat means. You know, we hear it about humans. It usually means they're like hoarders or something like that. And so I'm like, okay, so this rat's a hoarder. What's that all about? And I started to look into the debris piles that the Neotoma woodrat and really other pack rats put together, not even just the Neotoma woodrat that was kind of an Appalachian regional species. But around the country, pack rats, they will build their little nests. They'll build their nests out of anything they can find, sticks and leaves and all those things that you can mention. But they want to find as much cover, as much shelter as they can. So they'll try and build in rock crevices. Out west, it'll be in cacti or bushes or trees, but also in places like pool heaters, spas, car engines, all those kind of things. And they like shiny stuff, so they'll build that stuff into their nest too. But the part that I found most interesting is that there's this whole giant group of scientists studying history from tens of thousands of years ago based on these what are called rat middens, basically the debris piles that these wood rats construct. And they're everything. They're feces. Yeah, I'm sure there are batteries, cans of deodorant in there, and hairspray from the 70s. I don't know. But they can actually study these things. And in arid climates out west, these rat middens will actually be preserved. And they'll be preserved for literally tens of thousands of years. And Brother Brad, do you know what makes them preserved?
I do not.
There's this kind of shellac that forms, which, you know, like things are preserved in other ways. You'd say that it's amber. Well, this is called amber rat. And it basically is these pack rats will urinate on their nests and on their middens. And this urine will crystallize and harden. And it will get so hard, in fact, that they've been able to study these pack rat middens from as far back as 50,000 years. And all that's preserving it is basically them peeing on their nests, it getting hard, and then nobody touches it for 50,000 years. And they can do incredible ecological studies based on these things. One, there was a biologist from Stonehill College in Massachusetts, said that the objects that have this happen to them are embedded in a crystalline matrix of over 20,000-year-old urine. And that's such a beautiful thing, isn't it?
I guess. I'm not familiar with, what'd you say, amber rat?
Amber rat. So instead of, you know, something being preserved in amber, it's preserved in amber with 2 extra letters, amber rat, although I could not find a pronunciation of that. So
I am familiar with ambergris. Ambergris is a substance that comes out of the digestive tract of whales. In the same way, they can study ambergris.
So that's a beautiful benefit of these rats peeing all over everything. But that only works in those arid climates, you know, especially out in the desert out west. But similar things can be done as long as there are other sorts of preservation that end up happening. In fact, another incident I found, scientists and historians are joining together. There was this this historic house in Charleston, South Carolina, built in 1808. It's called the Nathaniel Russell House. And when historical preservationists went into this house a while ago, they started preserving all the main parts of the house that you would expect, but they kind of left the kitchen and the areas that the enslaved African Americans would have been, most active on the property back in the 1800s. They hadn't really done anything with like kitchens in some of those areas. They were using them for storage and things. But then there was somebody sitting in one of the rooms one day that decided just to open up one of these old walls. And they did find, not preserved by urine, but they did find these packrat nests that were preserved in there. And it's all the things you'd expect. It was sewing pins, buttons, marbles. But they also found printed paper from the 1830s that was an early writing primer. And they had no previous evidence that the enslaved Americans who were working in the house at that time had any resources for learning to read or write. So it began a process of them, as we start in this country trying to make sure we give a more holistic version of what our history is. It was actually going into rats' nests was the window to this whole part of the story that wasn't being told. I thought that was just a really cool thing. And apparently I saw examples of this all over the world, of these rats' nests being opened up and learning not just things about now, but about the history of all those different subjects that Dr. Thomas was studying, whether it be, the ground, the plants, the migrations of species, but up through more modern histories as well. And I just thought, for the first time in my life, I'm actually interested in something that rats are doing.
All I know is you watch those shows and you see those people who have like a million bees or wasps in their house, and you're like, how did that happen? And you not know it. I'm fairly certain if someone opened up our walls, it'd be a million bees or wasps, because they're everywhere.
House?
At our house. Yeah, it's a crazy place. So if you're not interested in rats, you should move to Alberta, Canada.
Tell me more.
Alberta, Canada has no rats.
What?
In 1950, the Norwegian rat, or however you pronounce his official name.
Rattus norvegicus.
Yes, the Rattus norvegicus was making its way to the border with Alberta.
And the Mounties stopped it.
They said, no, we're not going to do it. So they passed laws that you had to kill rats upon sight. Every person who lived there was required to do so. They still have those laws in place. They still have a rat squad that goes out and kills the rats. They have a rat helpline, 310 rats. You have to call if you see one. You have to take a picture and note where you found it, the time of day, and how many there were. And you have to contact 310 rats.
Are there penalties? Like if somebody catches you seeing a rat and catches you not reporting it, can you be penalized?
There used to be fines. I don't know if there are still. But there were. They had a fancy campaign in the 50s and 60s. They had a sign and everything. It says, you can't ignore the rat. He's a menace to health, home, and industry. Kill him! In big letters on the sign. Like, it was a thing.
Did you see images of this sign as you were looking into this?
I did.
That's so much better than I had ever heard of. Anything else you want to add before we go to the true expert on everything?
I think I'm good there.
Well, he is not an ordained minister, nor is he a member of Alberta Rat Control. But he is our father, Father Art, and it's time for us to ask him a few questions.
So in today's topic started out with Brother Jeff sending me a text about the Neotoma Woodrat. First, if you had a favorite rodent, what would that rodent be?
I don't know if it's a rodent or not, but it looks like it to me, a meerkat.
So the Neotoma Woodrat lives in a valley in Ohio. What's your favorite valley?
Probably the Rio Grande Valley.
If you had to choose, would you choose a pack of rats, a rat pack, a brat pack, or a pack of brats?
Definitely a rat pack.
Who was your favorite member of the rat pack?
Sammy Davis Jr. Clearly. I don't think that's I think that's the only answer.
Well, folks, now that we've heard from Father Art, it means that our time together is coming to an end once again. We've said just about everything that we can say about Rattus norvegicus and the Neotoma Woodrat and the Alberta Rat Control and all of the ologies. But another episode will be coming your way soon. We hope to settle into a bi-weekly episode release pattern, but we'll see how that goes. In the meantime, head over to our Instagram page at Things I Text My Brother Podcast to see some of the photos we talked about here on this episode, but also to drop us a note about what you liked, what you didn't like, or tell us about something that we got totally wrong so we can add it to next week's Ablutions. So yeah, visit all the places, hit like or subscribe or whatever will help other people find us on this little project, and the fraternity of Drouillards will be forever grateful. We will talk to you next time. Who are the stalkers in Chernobyl? They're people that go into the reactor now?
They're scientists who go into the reactor to take readings or spray different sprays to try to stop the fusion.
But like into the core of Building 4?
Yes.
Like where the core was?
Yeah.
How long can they be in there in year 2020, whatever? Jeez. And who takes that job? Why are you doing this?
Because Putin will kill you and your family if you don't.
Well, he's probably ridden through that reactor shirtless on a horse. That's probably why he's so powerful.